What happens when the most unpredictable species in the galaxy suddenly becomes predictable? For 3 centuries, the Galactic Council had grown accustomed to humanity's chaos. Their reckless exploration, their impossible victories against overwhelming odds, their stubborn refusal to follow any logical pattern. Humans were the wild card that kept every strategist awake at night and every diplomat reaching for stronger stimulants. But now, in the span of a single solar rotation, every human ship has gone silent. Every colony has ceased communication. Every ambassador has vanished from their posts without explanation, without demand, without even a farewell message. The galaxy's most feared warriors, most brilliant scientists, and most unpredictable allies have simply disappeared. And, in that sudden silence, the Council is about to discover something that will shake the very foundations of galactic civilization. Sometimes the most dangerous thing about humans isn't what they do when they're angry. It's what they're capable of when they choose to be quiet. The real question isn't where humanity went. The real question is, what are they planning? The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called within hours of the first reports. High Chancellor Zephyr of the Altarian Republic stood before the massive holographic display, her forearms gesturing at the slowly rotating galaxy map. Red indicators marked every known human settlement, military installation, and diplomatic outpost. All of them showed the same status, silent. Honored delegates, Zephyr began, her voice carrying the weight of 3 centuries of diplomatic experience. We are facing an unprecedented situation. At 0347 Galactic Standard Time, humanity ceased all external communications. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien languages. The insectoid creche clicked their mandibles in agitation while the crystalline Vorthan representatives chimed discordant notes of concern. Admiral Thax of the Draxian hegemony, his reptilian features grim, was the first to speak clearly. Chancellor, with respect, humans have always been unpredictable. Perhaps this is another of their chaotic strategies. Zephyr's primary hands gestured for silence while her secondary arms manipulated the holographic controls. The display zoomed in on the Sol system, showing Earth and its dozens of orbital installations. Admiral, this goes beyond their usual unpredictability. Every single human vessel, station, and colony went silent within a 4-hour window. No distress calls, no explanation, no demands. They simply stopped talking. The silence that followed was more unsettling than the earlier chaos. In 300 years of contact with humanity, nothing like this had ever occurred. Humans were notorious for their constant chatter, their endless stream of data transmissions, their inability to maintain operational security for more than a few standard cycles. Commander Veltar of the Cerulean Coalition leaned forward in her anti-gravity pod. Chancellor, what was the last recorded human transmission? Zephyr activated another display showing communication logs. A routine shipping manifest from the human colony on Kepler 442b. The transmission was standard, unremarkable. Captain Sarah Martinez reported a shipment of agricultural supplies to the Centauri system. Nothing in her voice pattern suggested distress or deception. The creche delegate, Ambassador Zixkith, clicked their mandibles thoughtfully. Perhaps the humans have finally recognized their inferior position in galactic society and have chosen to withdraw voluntarily. This statement drew heated responses from several delegates. The humans, whatever their faults, had proven themselves invaluable allies in numerous conflicts. Their unconventional tactics had saved entire sectors during the Void War, and their scientific innovations had advanced galactic technology by decades. Dr. Kyrian of the Academic Consortium, his energy-based form flickering with concern, materialized at his speaking platform. Colleagues, I must remind you that human contributions to our shared knowledge base have been substantial. Their approach to problem-solving, while chaotic, has yielded remarkable results. Their sudden silence is not just politically concerning, it's scientifically alarming. Admiral Thax scoffed, his scales shifting to a darker hue. The humans have always been useful barbarians, but let us not forget their place in the galactic hierarchy. They are a young species, barely 3 centuries in space. Whatever games they are playing will end when they realize they need our resources. High Chancellor Zephyr noted the Admiral's dismissive tone but chose not to address it directly. Instead, she brought up a new display showing economic data. Admiral, you raise an interesting point about resources. Our analysts have been reviewing trade patterns, and something remarkable has emerged. The hologram showed intricate trade networks spanning the galaxy. Humanity's connections were highlighted in blue, creating a web that touched nearly every major system. What became immediately apparent was how central human trade routes had become to galactic commerce. In the past 50 standard years, Zephyr continued, human trade networks have become integral to our economic systems. They transport 43% of all intersystem cargo, provide security for 37% of civilian shipping lanes, and their agricultural colonies feed 17 major non-human worlds. The implications began to sink in across the chamber. The Vorthan delegate's crystalline structure pulsed with worried frequencies. Chancellor, are you suggesting that human disappearance could affect our supply chains? I'm not suggesting anything, Zephyr replied carefully. I'm presenting data. The first supply shortages were reported 6 hours ago. The human agricultural world of New Eden was scheduled to deliver grain shipments to 3 Alterian colonies today. Those shipments never arrived. The chamber fell silent again, but this time the silence carried weight. The delegates were beginning to realize that humanity's sudden disappearance was not just a diplomatic curiosity, it was potentially catastrophic. Ambassador Kilmoth of the Hegemony Worlds, a being whose species communicated primarily through bioluminescent patterns, flashed a sequence of urgent lights. The translation appeared on delegates' displays: economic disruption acceptable. Human military capabilities are minimal threat. Admiral Thax nodded in agreement. The ambassador raises an excellent point. Human military forces, while creative, lack the raw power of our established fleets. Their largest vessels are toys compared to our dreadnoughts. Dr. Kirian's energy form flickered more intensely. Admiral, if I may present a different perspective? Without waiting for permission, he activated a military analysis display. Human forces have achieved a victory ratio of 87% in all recorded conflicts. This includes engagements where they were outnumbered by factors of 10 to 1 or greater. The Admiral's scales darkened further. Statistics can be misleading, Doctor. Human victories have relied on luck and the support of superior civilizations. Have they? Dr. Kirian challenged. Let me share some specific examples. The display shifted to show the Battle of the Crimson Nebula, where a single human destroyer had disabled 3 Draxian cruisers using modified mining equipment and creative interpretation of physics laws. Or perhaps the Siege of Station Prometheus, Dr. Kirian continued, where humans held off the entire Void Fleet for 3 standard months using nothing but civilian cargo vessels and remarkable tactical innovation. Each example he presented showed the same pattern: humans achieving impossible victories through unconventional thinking, technological improvisation, and an apparent disregard for accepted strategic doctrine. Commander Veltar's pod rotated to face the Admiral. Thax, your own military reports have consistently noted human unpredictability as a significant tactical advantage. Are you now claiming those reports were inaccurate? The Admiral's silence spoke volumes. The truth was that every major military power in the galaxy had studied human tactics, trying to understand how such a young species could consistently defeat enemies with superior technology and numbers. High Chancellor Zephyr decided to redirect the discussion. Delegates, we are not here to debate human military capabilities. We are here to address their sudden disappearance and its implications for galactic stability. She activated a new display showing recent sensor readings. Our long-range monitoring stations have detected some unusual data. While human communications have ceased, there has been significant movement within their territory. Ships are moving, but they are maintaining complete communications blackout. The Kresh delegate leaned forward. What kind of movement patterns? That's what concerns our analysts, Zephyr admitted. The movements appear coordinated, but they don't match any known human operational patterns. Ships are converging on specific systems, but we cannot determine why. Ambassador Kilmoth's bioluminescent display flickered rapidly, suggest immediate investigation. Send probe vessels to human territory. Several delegates voiced agreement, but Dr. Kirian raised an objection. Colleagues, I must advise caution. Human space is sovereign territory. Sending uninvited probe vessels could be considered an act of aggression. Admiral Thax laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the chamber. Doctor, the humans are clearly planning something. We cannot allow sentiment to override security. I recommend sending a full reconnaissance fleet to Sol System immediately. The suggestion sparked heated debate. Some delegates supported immediate investigation, while others urged diplomatic caution. The chamber filled with overlapping translations as species argued in their native languages. High Chancellor Zephyr called for order, but the debate continued. It was Ambassador Zixkith who finally cut through the noise with a sharp mandible click that demanded attention. Honored delegates, the Kresh ambassador began, perhaps we are overthinking this situation. The humans are a young species prone to dramatic gestures. They have likely withdrawn to make some point about their position in galactic society. They will return when they require resources or assistance. Many delegates nodded in agreement. It was a reasonable assessment based on human behavior patterns. Humans had walked away from negotiations before, though never on this scale. But Dr. Kyrian wasn't convinced. Ambassador Zixkith, I appreciate your analysis, but I must point out that human behavior patterns have never included simultaneous, galaxy-wide communication blackouts. This level of coordination suggests planning and purpose beyond a simple diplomatic statement. The debate might have continued indefinitely, but it was interrupted by an urgent communication from the Council's monitoring division. A technician's image appeared on the main display, their expression grim. High Chancellor, we're receiving reports from monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. Human vessels are not just moving within their territory, they're establishing positions along every major hyperspace route connecting Council member systems. The chamber fell completely silent. The implications were staggering. If humans were positioning themselves along hyperspace routes, they could effectively control galactic commerce and communication. Admiral Thax was the first to recover his voice. Chancellor, this is clearly an act of aggression. The humans are attempting to hold galactic commerce hostage. But, as the delegates absorbed this information, many began to realize something that sent chills through their various physiologies. The humans weren't just positioned along trade routes, they were positioned along every possible military approach to human territory as well. Whatever humanity was planning, they had just demonstrated that they understood galactic infrastructure better than anyone had realized. And they had positioned themselves to control it. High Chancellor Zephyr stared at the tactical display showing human vessel positions. For 3 centuries, the Council had viewed humans as useful but junior partners in galactic civilization. Now, in a single coordinated action, humanity had demonstrated that they might have been planning for this moment all along. The question was no longer what the humans wanted. The question was, what had they been preparing for? The emergency session had stretched into its 18th hour when the first real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Nimera, a junior researcher from the Epsilon Eridani monitoring station, had been granted permission to address the Council, something that would have been unthinkable under normal circumstances. Her holographic image appeared before the assembled delegates, clearly nervous but determined. Honored Council members, I believe I have information relevant to the human situation. High Chancellor Zephyr gestured for her to continue. The exhausted delegates were willing to hear any new perspective at this point. 3 standard days ago, I detected unusual quantum fluctuations emanating from human space, Dr. Nimera began. Initially, I attributed these readings to their experimental faster-than-light communication projects. However, after analyzing the data more carefully, I believe they may have achieved something unprecedented. She activated a data stream showing complex quantum signatures. The patterns suggest the humans have successfully created a galaxy-wide quantum entanglement network. If this is accurate, they can communicate instantaneously across any distance without using traditional hyperspace relays. The implications hit the delegates like a physical force. Instantaneous communication across galactic distances would fundamentally change every aspect of civilization, military, economic, and political. Admiral Thax leaned forward aggressively. Doctor, such technology is theoretical at best. Human science, while occasionally innovative, lacks the sophistication for quantum entanglement on that scale. Dr. Nimera's image flickered as she accessed more data. Admiral, with respect, human approaches to quantum mechanics have always been unconventional. They often achieve results that our theoretical models suggest should be impossible. Commander Veltar's anti-gravity pod rotated toward the display. Doctor, if the humans have achieved instantaneous communication, it would explain their coordinated movements. But, it raises a more disturbing question: how long have they possessed this technology? The question hung in the air like a toxic cloud. If humans had been secretly communicating across their territory instantaneously, every Council assumption about human capabilities would need to be reconsidered. Dr. Kyrian's energy form pulsed with intense curiosity. Dr. Nimera, can you provide more details about these quantum signatures? The theoretical implications alone would revolutionize our understanding of physics. Before the young researcher could respond, another priority alert flashed across the chamber's displays. High Chancellor Zephyr accepted the incoming transmission, and the image of Captain Mordak of the long-range scout vessel Vigilant appeared. Chancellor, Captain Mordak began, his voice tense, I'm reporting from the edge of human space near the Proxima Centauri system. We've been observing human fleet movements, and... He paused, clearly struggling with his report. Continue, Captain, Zephyr urged. Chancellor, the human vessels are not behaving like any military fleet we've encountered. They're not establishing defensive positions or preparing for conflict. They're building something. The captain transmitted his sensor data to the council chamber. The tactical display showed dozens of human ships working in perfect coordination around what appeared to be massive construction projects. What exactly are they building? Admiral Thax demanded. Captain Mordak's expression grew more troubled. Admiral, our analysts are still studying the data, but preliminary assessments suggest they're constructing some form of gateway system. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. Ambassador Zixkith clicked their mandibles sharply. Captain, are these weapons platforms? No, Ambassador. The structures appear to be transportation related. But the scale is enormous. Each gateway is approximately the size of a small moon. The chamber erupted in concerned murmurs. Gateway technology on that scale would represent a quantum leap in interstellar travel capabilities. If humans could move fleets instantaneously between distant points, the strategic balance of galactic power would shift dramatically. Dr. Kirian processed the information quickly. Captain, how many of these gateways are under construction? Doctor, that's what's most concerning. We've identified construction sites in 17 different systems, all proceeding simultaneously. The level of coordination required would be impossible without instantaneous communication. This confirmed Dr. Nimera's quantum entanglement theory, but it also raised terrifying questions about human long-term planning. The scope of the construction project suggested years or even decades of preparation. High Chancellor Zephyr felt a cold realization settling over her. Captain, in your professional assessment, how long would such construction projects require? Captain Mordak consulted his data displays. Chancellor, based on the complexity and scale, even with advanced automated systems, these projects would require a minimum of 5 to 7 standard years. However, if the humans began with partially completed frameworks. He didn't finish the sentence, but everyone understood. If humans had been secretly building these gateways for years, their sudden communications blackout represented the final phase of a plan that dwarfed anything the Council had imagined. Ambassador Kilmatha's bioluminescent display flashed urgently, require immediate military response. Human actions constitute galactic threat. Admiral Thax nodded emphatically. The ambassador is correct. Chancellor, we cannot allow humans to complete whatever they're planning. I recommend immediate mobilization of the combined fleet. But, Dr. Kirian's energy form flickered with concern. Admiral, we still don't know what the humans are actually planning. Military action based on assumptions could be catastrophic. Admiral Thax replied harshly, the humans have demonstrated clear hostile intent. They've cut communications, positioned forces along our supply routes, and are constructing unknown technology of unprecedented scale. What more evidence do you require? The debate was interrupted by Dr. Nimera, who had been quietly analyzing incoming data streams. Honored delegates, I'm detecting new quantum signatures from human space. The pattern is changing. She transmitted her readings to the main display. The quantum fluctuations were indeed shifting, becoming more complex and organized. What does this indicate? Commander Veltar asked. Dr. Nimera's voice carried a note of awe. Commander, if I'm interpreting this correctly, the humans are activating their network. The quantum entanglement links are being tested across their entire territory. As if summoned by her words, Captain Mordak's image reappeared with urgent news. Chancellor, the human construction projects have just accelerated dramatically. Automated systems are working at triple speed, and we're detecting massive energy buildups around each gateway site. High Chancellor Zephyr made a decision that would define her legacy. Captain, maintain your position and continue observations. Do not approach human vessels under any circumstances. she turned to the assembled delegates. "We need to attempt direct contact with human leadership." Admiral Fax protested immediately. "Chancellor, the humans have made their intentions clear through their actions. Further diplomatic attempts are pointless." Nevertheless, Zephyr replied firmly, "We will exhaust diplomatic options before considering military response. The consequences of miscalculation are too severe." She activated the Council's most powerful communication array and directed it toward Earth. The message would be transmitted on all frequencies humans had previously used for diplomatic contact. "This is High Chancellor Zephyr of the Galactic Council, addressing human leadership. We request immediate dialogue regarding recent actions within human territory. The galactic community seeks understanding of your intentions and peaceful resolution of current tensions." The message transmitted across space at lightspeed, carrying the hopes and fears of dozens of species. The response, when it came 4 hours later, was not what anyone expected. The transmission originated from Earth, but the voice was unfamiliar to Council databases. A human female, speaking with calm authority that suggested high rank. "High Chancellor Zephyr, this is Admiral Elena Vasquez, speaking for the United Human Federation. We acknowledge your transmission and your concerns." The fact that humans had responded was encouraging, but the formal tone and unfamiliar title suggested significant changes in human government structure. "Admiral Vasquez," Zephyr replied immediately, "the Council appreciates your response. We seek clarification regarding the cessation of human communications and recent military activities." There was a pause before Admiral Vasquez responded. "Chancellor, human actions are not directed against the Council or any member species. We are implementing necessary security measures for a critical operation." The vague response frustrated several delegates, but Zephyr pressed for details. "Admiral, the scope of your activities has raised concerns about galactic stability. Can you provide more specific information about your intentions?" Another pause. When Admiral Vasquez spoke again, her tone carried a note of grave seriousness. "Chancellor, humanity is preparing to address a threat that affects the entire galaxy. Our communications blackout and fleet movements are necessary for operational security." This revelation sent shockwaves through the chamber. A threat to the entire galaxy that only humans had detected? Admiral Fax's scales shifted to an angry red hue. "Admiral," he interrupted, "what threat could possibly justify unilateral action on this scale?" Admiral Vasquez's response was measured but firm. "Admiral Fax, we understand your concerns. However, we cannot provide detailed information until our preparations are complete. Premature revelation could compromise our response capabilities." Dr. Kirian manifested a more solid form to ask his question directly. "Admiral Vasquez, can you at least indicate the nature of this threat? Is it military, environmental, or something else entirely?" The pause this time was longer, as if Admiral Vasquez was consulting with others. Finally, she responded, "Dr. Kirian, the threat is external to our galaxy. Our deep space monitoring systems have detected incoming entities that pose an existential threat to all intelligent life." The chamber fell silent as delegates processed this information. An external galactic threat was beyond anything they had prepared for or imagined. Commander Veltar was the first to find her voice. "Admiral, if such a threat exists, why have our own monitoring systems detected nothing?" Admiral Vasquez's response revealed the depth of human preparation. "Commander, our monitoring capabilities have been significantly enhanced through technologies the Council has not yet developed. We detected these entities 18 months ago and have been preparing our response since then." 18 months of secret preparation. The scope of human planning was becoming clear, and it dwarfed anything the Council had attributed to human capabilities. High Chancellor Zephyr felt the weight of galactic leadership settling heavily upon her shoulders. "Admiral Vasquez, the Council requests a formal briefing on this threat and human response plans. The galaxy's response to such a crisis must be coordinated." The final pause was the longest yet. When Admiral Vasquez responded, her words would echo through galactic history. "Chancellor, human analysis indicates that coordinated response by current galactic military forces would be insufficient against this threat. Our response must be different." As the transmission ended, the delegates sat in stunned silence. Humanity hadn't vanished to threaten the galaxy, they had disappeared to save it. But their methods remained a mystery that was about to reshape everything. The council chamber had transformed into a hub of frantic activity following Admiral Vasquez's revelation. Emergency committees formed and, dissolved as delegates struggled to comprehend the implications of an external galactic threat. High Chancellor Zephyr found herself coordinating response efforts while wrestling with a fundamental question: could humanity be trusted with the galaxy's survival? Dr. Kirian had established a direct link with the Council's most advanced sensor networks, desperately searching for any trace of the threat humans claimed to have detected. His energy form flickered with intense concentration as he processed terabytes of astronomical data. Chancellor, he reported after 6 hours of analysis, our deep space monitoring arrays show no anomalous readings beyond normal cosmic background radiation. Either this threat is beyond our detection capabilities, or the humans are orchestrating the most elaborate deception in galactic history, Admiral Thax finished grimly. His reptilian features had taken on an even darker hue as stress hormones flooded his system. Commander Veltar's anti-gravity pod rotated to face both speakers. Colleagues, we must consider the evidence objectively. Human actions demonstrate unprecedented coordination and planning. The question is whether this serves defensive or offensive purposes. Ambassador Zixkitha's mandibles clicked rapidly in the Kresh equivalent of nervous energy. The human response patterns suggest preparation for asymmetric warfare. Their gateway technology could enable instantaneous deployment of forces throughout the galaxy. High Chancellor Zephyr studied the tactical displays showing human fleet positions. The more she analyzed their movements, the more sophisticated their strategy appeared. Human vessels weren't just positioned along trade routes, they formed a complex network that could isolate any system within hours. Dr. Kirian, she asked, what would be required to verify human claims about external threats? The energy being's form brightened as he considered the question. Chancellor, we would need to extend our sensor range significantly beyond current capabilities. However, humans have apparently achieved this through technological advances we don't possess. Ambassador Kilmatha's bioluminescent display pulsed with a pattern the translators rendered as, request human sensor data for verification purposes. It was a logical suggestion, but Admiral Thax immediately objected. Sharing their sensor data would allow humans to manipulate our perception of any threat. We cannot base galactic security decisions on information we cannot independently verify. The debate was interrupted by urgent alerts from multiple monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. Captain Mordak's image appeared on the main display, his expression reflecting barely controlled excitement. Chancellor, we're observing extraordinary developments in human space. The gateway constructions have achieved some form of activation state. Energy readings are unlike anything in our databases. Zephyr authorized the transmission of Captain Mordak's sensor data to the chamber. The tactical display showed massive energy signatures surrounding each human gateway site. The power levels were staggering, comparable to stellar output. Dr. Nimera, still linked to the session from her monitoring station, provided additional analysis. Honored delegates, the quantum signatures indicate the humans have achieved stable artificial wormhole generation. The implications for space-time manipulation are revolutionary. The young researchers' data confirmed what many delegates feared: human technology had advanced far beyond Council understanding. Artificial wormhole generation was theoretical physics that most species believed impossible. Admiral Thax paced within his designated area, his aggressive movements betraying his frustration. Chancellor, human claims become more extraordinary by the hour. Galactic threats, instantaneous communication, artificial wormholes, these sound like desperate fabrications to justify their actions. But Commander Veltar had been studying the human fleet positions more carefully. Admiral, consider this possibility: if humans genuinely face an external threat requiring these capabilities, their secrecy becomes logical rather than suspicious. Commander, Admiral Thax replied harshly, you're allowing human manipulation to cloud your judgment. No species develops such advanced technology in secret without aggressive intentions. Dr. Kirian's form flickered with analytical intensity. Admiral, perhaps we're approaching this incorrectly. Instead of debating human intentions, we should focus on verification. If their threat is real, we need to prepare. If it's fabrication, we need to respond accordingly. High Chancellor Zephyr appreciated Dr. Kirian's practical approach, but verification seemed impossible with current resources. The humans possessed technological advantages that made independent assessment difficult. The discussion was interrupted by another transmission from Admiral Vasquez. Her image appeared with the same calm authority as before, but careful observers noted increased tension in her posture. High Chancellor, we are prepared to provide limited information about the external threat, but we require immediate Council cooperation for our defensive preparations. Zephyr leaned forward. Admiral, the Council appreciates your willingness to share information. What form of cooperation do you require? Admiral Vasquez's response revealed the true scope of human planning. Chancellor, our analysis indicates successful defense requires galactic population evacuation to secure sectors. We need immediate access to civilian transport networks and temporary settlement arrangements. The request sent shockwaves through the chamber. Galactic population evacuation suggested a threat of unimaginable magnitude. Either humanity faced genuine catastrophe, or they were implementing the most audacious conquest strategy ever attempted. Ambassador Zixkitha's mandibles clicked frantically. Admiral Vasquez, evacuation of what scale are you proposing? Ambassador, our models indicate 97% of galactic population must be relocated to survive the incoming threat. The evacuation must be completed within 47 standard days. The number was staggering. 97% of galactic population represented trillions of beings across hundreds of worlds. The logistics alone would require unprecedented coordination and resources. Admiral Fax could barely contain his rage. This is absurd. No natural phenomenon could threaten such a vast area. The humans are clearly planning conquest under the guise of protection. But, Dr. Kyrian was processing the implications more carefully. Admiral Vasquez, what is the nature of this threat that requires such massive evacuation? Admiral Vasquez paused before responding, clearly weighing her words carefully. Dr. Kyrian, our deep space sensors have detected an incoming wave of entities that consume organized matter and energy. Their approach will destabilize entire star systems. The description sent chills through delegates familiar with theoretical physics. Entities that consumed organized matter could potentially unravel the fundamental structure of spacetime itself. Commander Veltar's pod rotated rapidly as she processed the information. Admiral, entities capable of destabilizing star systems would be detectable by our own sensors. Why have we seen nothing? Commander, Admiral Vasquez replied patiently, these entities exist partially outside normal spacetime. They become fully detectable only when they begin active consumption of local space. By then, response time is measured in hours rather than years. High Chancellor Zephyr felt the weight of impossible decisions crushing down upon her. If humans were truthful, delaying cooperation could doom galactic civilization. If they were lying, cooperation could enable the conquest of every free world. Admiral Vasquez, she said slowly, the Council requires proof of this threat before authorizing galactic evacuation. Surely you understand our position. Admiral Vasquez's expression showed genuine sympathy. Chancellor, I understand completely. However, providing proof requires revealing detection methods that compromise our defensive capabilities. The entities appear to possess some form of technological awareness. Dr. Nimera interjected with a crucial observation. Admiral, if these entities are technologically aware, wouldn't they already know about galactic civilization? Why would hiding our detection methods matter? Admiral Vasquez's response revealed disturbing new dimensions to the threat. Dr. Nimera, the entities appear to be guided by some form of collective intelligence. Premature revelation of our capabilities could trigger adaptive responses that make defense impossible. The concept of adaptive, intelligent cosmic entities was beyond anything in galactic scientific literature. If such beings existed, traditional military responses would indeed be useless. Admiral Fax made a final attempt at skepticism. Admiral Vasquez, your claims become more extraordinary with each revelation. Surely you can provide some form of verifiable evidence. Admiral Vasquez was quiet for several moments before responding. Admiral Fax, we can provide limited sensor data from our deep space monitoring stations. However, interpreting this data requires understanding of physics principles your species have not yet developed. The condescending tone might have been offensive under normal circumstances, but the implications were too serious for wounded pride. If humans had indeed advanced beyond galactic scientific understanding, their claims deserved serious consideration. Dr. Kyrian's energy form pulsed with desperate curiosity. Admiral, we request immediate transmission of this sensor data. Our scientific community can adapt to new principles if lives depend on it. Dr. Kirian, we will transmit preliminary data within the next 6 hours. However, you must understand that full comprehension may require direct human assistance. High Chancellor Zephyr made her decision. Admiral Vasquez, the Council will review your evidence immediately upon transmission. In the meantime, we request detailed information about your evacuation proposals. Chancellor, we are preparing comprehensive evacuation plans for transmission along with the sensor data. However, time is critical. Our calculations indicate the entities will reach the galactic outer rim in 41 standard days. The countdown had begun. Whether facing genuine catastrophe or elaborate deception, the Council now had 41 days to make decisions that would determine the fate of galactic civilization. As Admiral Vasquez's transmission ended, the chamber fell into grim silence. Each delegate understood that they were witnessing either humanity's greatest service to galactic civilization or the beginning of its most sophisticated conquest. The truth would emerge in the data. But, first, they had to survive long enough to understand it. The sensor data arrived exactly 6 hours later, transmitted through quantum entanglement channels that bypass traditional communication networks. Dr. Kirian's energy form blazed with intense activity as he processed information that challenged every fundamental assumption about cosmic physics. High Chancellor Zephyr watched the scientific analysis unfold on the chamber's massive displays. The data showed spacetime distortions that appeared to move through dimensions beyond normal perception. Mathematical models required entirely new frameworks that seemed to exist at the intersection of physics and pure mathematics. Dr. Kirian, she asked carefully, what are we looking at? The energy being's form flickered as he struggled to translate incomprehensible data into terms other species could understand. Chancellor, the humans have detected entities that exist in 11-dimensional space while interacting with our 3-dimensional reality. The physics alone should be impossible. Ambassador Zixkith clicked their mandibles nervously. Doctor, could human technology have fabricated this data? Dr. Kirian pulsed with scientific integrity. Ambassador, creating false data of this complexity would require understanding the underlying physics. If humans possess that understanding, they've achieved scientific breakthroughs that advance galactic knowledge by centuries. Admiral Fax studied the displays with growing frustration. The data appeared genuine, but its implications were staggering. Doctor, assuming this data is accurate, what capabilities would be required to defend against such entities? Admiral, Dr. Kirian replied grimly, traditional military responses would be useless. These entities manipulate spacetime itself. Conventional weapons would have no effect. The revelation sent chills through the chamber. If the threat was real, every military strategy and defensive technology in the galaxy was obsolete. Only the humans claimed capability to respond. Commander Veltar's anti-gravity pod rotated toward the tactical displays showing human fleet positions. Colleagues, reviewing human preparations with this new information reveals remarkable strategic sophistication. Their gateway network could facilitate evacuation on the scale they've described. Dr. Nimera transmitted additional analysis from her monitoring station. Honored delegates, I've been correlating human quantum signatures with the sensor data. Their communication network appears designed specifically to coordinate response to 11-dimensional entities. The correlation was damning evidence for human truthfulness. Technology designed for such specific purposes couldn't have been developed as deception. Either the threat was real, or human scientific understanding exceeded galactic knowledge by impossible margins. High Chancellor Zephyr made the most difficult decision of her career. Delegates, based on available evidence, I believe we must seriously consider human claims. The consequences of disbelief, if they're truthful, are unacceptable. Admiral Fax's scales shifted to deep red as stress hormones flooded his system. Chancellor, you're allowing human manipulation to override rational analysis. No species develops such capabilities without conquest intentions. Admiral, Dr. Kirian interjected, human development patterns have never followed conventional models. Their scientific approach consistently achieves results our theories suggest should be impossible. The debate was interrupted by emergency alerts from monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. Captain Mordak's image appeared with reports that confirmed everyone's worst fears. Chancellor, we're detecting massive energy buildups throughout human space. The gateway network is approaching full activation, and human fleets are moving into evacuation positions. Zephyr studied the tactical data Captain Mordak transmitted. Human vessels were indeed positioning themselves near major population centers, but their formations suggested rescue operations rather than conquest. Captain, what are human forces doing near civilian populations? Chancellor, they appear to be establishing evacuation staging areas. Massive transport vessels are emerging from previously unknown locations. The revelation that humans possessed hidden transport fleets suggested preparation spanning years or decades. The scope of their planning indicated genuine crisis response rather than opportunistic conquest. Ambassador Kilmatha's bioluminescent display flashed urgently, require immediate council decision on cooperation with human evacuation efforts. The ambassador was correct. Time for debate was running out. If human predictions were accurate, galactic civilization had 38 days before entity arrival. High Chancellor Zephyr activated the Council's emergency decision protocols. Delegates, we must vote immediately on cooperation with human evacuation plans. The consequences of delay could be catastrophic. Admiral Thax made a final passionate argument against cooperation. Chancellor, we cannot base galactic security on human claims we cannot verify. Their technological advantages could enable conquest disguised as rescue. But Dr. Kyrian had reached different conclusions. Admiral, analysis of human sensor data reveals scientific principles that suggest genuine external threat. The risk of non-cooperation exceeds the risk of manipulation. The vote proceeded with unprecedented urgency. Species that normally required days for consultation were forced to decide within hours. The final tally reflected galactic desperation, cooperation approved by narrow majority. High Chancellor Zephyr immediately contacted Admiral Vasquez with the Council's decision. Admiral, the Council votes to cooperate with human evacuation efforts, subject to ongoing verification and oversight. Admiral Vasquez appeared relieved but remained focused on operational details. Chancellor, we appreciate the Council's decision. We're transmitting detailed evacuation plans immediately. Time is critical. The evacuation plans revealed the true scope of human preparation. Transport networks, temporary settlement sites, resource allocation, every detail had been planned with precision that suggested years of development. Commander Veltar studied the plans with growing amazement. Admiral Vasquez, the logistics coordination required for these operations exceeds anything in galactic military history. How long have humans been preparing? Admiral Vasquez's response revealed the depth of human commitment. Commander, we initiated preparation 18 months ago when our deep space sensors first detected entity approach. However, the theoretical framework required decades of research. Decades of secret research. The revelation explained human technological advancement and strategic sophistication. While other species focused on conventional concerns, humanity had been preparing for threats beyond galactic imagination. Dr. Kyrian manifested his most solid form to ask the crucial question. Admiral, what scientific principles enable your defensive capabilities against 11-dimensional entities? Admiral Vasquez paused before responding. Doctor, our approach utilizes controlled quantum vacuum fluctuations to create barriers these entities cannot penetrate. The physics require manipulation of spacetime curvature at submolecular levels. The explanation used terms that barely existed in galactic scientific literature. If humans could manipulate quantum vacuum and spacetime curvature, their technological capabilities exceeded galactic understanding by centuries. Ambassador Zixkith clicked mandibles thoughtfully. Admiral, if your defensive technology is so advanced, why is evacuation necessary? Ambassador, Admiral Vasquez replied grimly, our defensive barriers can protect limited areas for limited time. Protecting entire star systems indefinitely requires resources beyond current human capabilities. The honesty about human limitations was paradoxically reassuring. Species planning conquest would claim unlimited power, not acknowledge resource constraints. High Chancellor Zephyr began coordinating the largest logistical operation in galactic history. Admiral Vasquez, the Council authorizes immediate implementation of evacuation procedures. What do you require from member species? Chancellor, we need immediate suspension of territorial restrictions for our transport fleets. Standard diplomatic protocols will add weeks to evacuation timelines. The request meant allowing human vessels unrestricted access to every system in the galaxy. Under normal circumstances, such permission would be unthinkable. But circumstances had moved far beyond normal. Dr. Nimera transmitted new readings that added urgency to the situation. Honored delegates, I'm detecting changes in cosmic background radiation consistent with approaching 11-dimensional entities. The human timeline appears accurate. Independent confirmation of human claims removed the last reasonable doubts about entity existence. Whatever approached the galaxy was real, and human preparations represented the only known defense. Admiral Fax finally accepted the inevitable. Chancellor, I withdraw my objections to human cooperation. If entities are approaching, we must utilize every available resource for defense. High Chancellor Zephyr authorized sweeping emergency powers. All territorial restrictions are suspended for human transport vessels. Emergency evacuation protocols are authorized for immediate implementation. Admiral Vasquez nodded grimly. Chancellor, we're activating the gateway network now. Transport operations will begin within 6 hours. We estimate 43 days for complete evacuation of designated sectors. The timeline left no room for error. If human calculations were wrong, billions of beings would die. If their technology failed, galactic civilization would end. But, as human gateways activated across the galaxy, something remarkable became apparent. The technology worked exactly as promised. Massive transport vessels emerged from artificial wormholes with precision that demonstrated absolute mastery of advanced physics. Dr. Kirian's energy form blazed with admiration. Admiral, your quantum vacuum manipulation creates spacetime stability that exceeds theoretical possibilities. How did humans achieve such breakthroughs? Admiral Vasquez smiled for the first time since contact began. Doctor, humans have always excelled at making impossible things work. When galactic survival depends on it, impossibility becomes merely another engineering challenge. As evacuation fleets moved toward their destinations, High Chancellor Zephyr realized that humanity hadn't just developed advanced technology. They had evolved into something beyond galactic understanding, a species capable of protecting entire civilizations from threats other species couldn't even perceive. The galaxy was about to discover what humans could accomplish when they chose to save everyone instead of conquering anyone. But, first, they had to survive the next 37 days. The evacuation proceeded with clockwork precision that amazed even the most skeptical delegates. Human transport vessels appeared through gateway portals exactly on schedule, their crews demonstrating operational efficiency that seemed to transcend normal biological limitations. High Chancellor Zephyr monitored operations from the Council's Emergency Command Center, watching as trillions of beings were relocated to secure sectors with minimal disruption. The logistics alone should have been impossible, yet humans managed every detail with casual competence. Dr. Kirian had established permanent residence in the command center, his energy form blazing with constant analysis of human operations. Chancellor, their coordination protocols utilize quantum entanglement communication combined with predictive modeling that approaches precognitive accuracy. Admiral Fax, now fully committed to cooperation, studied tactical displays showing defensive preparations. Doctor, human military positions suggest they're planning to engage these entities directly rather than simply hiding behind barriers. The observation was accurate. While evacuation continued, human combat vessels were taking positions along the galactic rim where entity contact was predicted. Their formations suggested strategic planning that went far beyond defensive measures. Commander Veltar's anti-gravity pod rotated toward communication arrays. Colleagues, we should request briefing on human engagement strategies. If they plan direct confrontation with 11-dimensional entities, the Council should understand their methods. High Chancellor Zephyr agreed immediately. The galaxy's survival depended on human capabilities, but cooperation required understanding. She activated direct communication with Admiral Vasquez. Admiral, the Council requests information about your engagement strategies against the approaching entities. Admiral Vasquez appeared on screen surrounded by holographic displays showing incomprehensible tactical data. Chancellor, our engagement strategy utilizes controlled quantum vacuum collapse to destabilize entity dimensional matrices. The explanation meant nothing to most delegates, but Dr. Kirian's form flickered with intense interest. Admiral, quantum vacuum collapse could theoretically affect spacetime structure itself. The energy requirements would be enormous. Doctor, you're correct. We've constructed specialized vessels capable of channeling stellar output through quantum focusing arrays. The technology represents the culmination of human theoretical physics research. Stellar-powered quantum weapons represented technology beyond anything in galactic databases. If humans could channel star-level energy through quantum arrays, their combat capabilities exceeded conventional understanding. Ambassador Zixkith clicked mandibles thoughtfully. Admiral, if your weapons are so powerful, why was evacuation necessary? Could you not simply destroy these entities? Admiral Vasquez's expression grew grim. Ambassador, the entities exist across multiple dimensional planes simultaneously. Destroying them in our dimension requires affecting their presence in 11 different realities. The process creates space-time instabilities that threaten local star systems. The explanation revealed why evacuation was essential. Human weapons could destroy the entities, but the collateral damage would devastate entire sectors. Evacuation protected galactic civilization from their own defensive measures. Dr. Nimera transmitted new sensor readings that confirmed entity approach. Honored delegates, deep space monitoring stations are detecting dimensional boundary fluctuations consistent with 11-dimensional entity manifestation. Estimated time to galactic rim contact, 6 days. 6 days. The evacuation timeline had been accurate, and human preparations were proceeding exactly as predicted. Either humanity possessed precognitive abilities, or their scientific understanding enabled prediction with supernatural accuracy. Admiral Fax studied defensive positions with professional interest. Admiral Vasquez, your combat formations suggest coordinated engagement across multiple sectors simultaneously. How many vessels are you deploying? Admiral, we're deploying approximately 12,000 specialized combat platforms supported by 36,000 conventional vessels. However, our primary weapon systems are integrated into the gateway network itself. The revelation that human gateways served as weapons platforms explained their massive size and energy requirements. Humans had created a galaxy-spanning weapon system disguised as transportation infrastructure. High Chancellor Zephyr felt a chill of realization. If humans had planned weapon systems spanning years and disguised them as civilian infrastructure, their strategic thinking operated on timescales that dwarfed conventional military planning. Dr. Kirian processed the implications with scientific fascination. Admiral, integrating weapon systems into transportation networks suggests your planning encompassed both evacuation and combat requirements from initial conception. Admiral Vasquez nodded calmly. Doctor, defending against 11-dimensional entities requires capabilities that traditional military doctrine cannot provide. Our approach integrates every aspect of galactic infrastructure into coordinated defensive strategy. The scope of human planning was staggering. They had apparently redesigned galactic infrastructure itself to serve as weapons against threats other species couldn't even detect. Commander Veltar asked the question troubling many delegates. Admiral, if your preparations have been so extensive, why maintain secrecy until the last moment? Admiral Vasquez's response revealed the deepest levels of human strategic thinking. Commander, the entities appear to possess some form of technological awareness. Revealing our capabilities prematurely could have triggered adaptive responses that made defense impossible. Technological awareness among cosmic entities suggested intelligence that transcended normal understanding. If such beings could adapt to defensive measures, secrecy became essential for survival. The discussion was interrupted by emergency alerts from the galactic rim. Captain Mordak's image appeared with reports that sent chills through the command center. Chancellor, we're detecting massive spacetime distortions along the outer rim. Reality itself appears to be changing. Captain Mordak transmitted sensor data showing cosmic regions where normal physics no longer applied. Stars were disappearing, space was folding, and matter was reorganizing into patterns that defy comprehension. Dr. Kirian's energy form blazed with analytical intensity. Captain, these readings indicate complete breakdown of local spacetime structure. Whatever these entities are, they're fundamentally altering reality itself. High Chancellor Zephyr watched in horror as galactic rim systems simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, erased from reality as if they had never been. Admiral Vasquez, she said urgently, are your defensive measures ready? Admiral Vasquez's image appeared surrounded by urgent activity. Chancellor, we're initiating engagement protocols now. The Gateway Weapon Network is achieving full power, and our combat fleets are moving into position. Through the command center's displays, delegates watched human vessels take positions that seemed suicidal. They were placing themselves directly between the reality-consuming entities and the galaxy's core. Dr. Nimera's reading showed the approaching entities in terrible detail. Beings of pure destructive force that consumed organized matter and energy, leaving behind cosmic void where entire star systems had existed. Admiral Fax called urgently, your vessels are moving directly into entity path. Those formations will result in total destruction. Admiral Vasquez's response revealed the depth of human commitment. Admiral, our vessels are equipped with quantum vacuum shielding that provides temporary protection. However, you're correct, this engagement will likely result in significant casualties. Human crews were knowingly sacrificing themselves to protect species that had questioned their motives and capabilities. The nobility of their actions shamed delegates who had suspected conquest rather than rescue. The first contact occurred at the Proxima sector, where human vessels engaged entities that existed partially outside normal reality. The battle was unlike anything in galactic military history, ships firing weapons that affected spacetime itself against enemies that consumed matter and energy. Dr. Kyrian provided analysis as the battle unfolded. Chancellor, human weapons are creating controlled quantum vacuum collapses that destabilize entity-dimensional matrices. The physics are revolutionary. Human vessels were succeeding. Entities that consumed entire star systems were being destroyed by weapons that manipulated reality at quantum levels. But the cost was staggering. Each weapon discharge destabilized local spacetime, and human ships were being consumed along with their targets. Admiral Vasquez maintained communication throughout the engagement. Chancellor, primary engagement is proceeding as calculated. Entity advance has been halted in 7 sectors, but we're losing vessels at predicted rates. The clinical tone couldn't hide the tragedy. Thousands of human crew members were dying to protect civilizations that had doubted their intentions. High Chancellor Zephyr felt overwhelming gratitude and shame. Admiral, the galaxy owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid. Admiral Vasquez's response embodied everything that made humans unique. Chancellor, the galaxy is our home too. Protecting it is not a sacrifice, it's responsibility. The engagement continued for 18 hours as human forces systematically destroyed entity after entity while paying terrible costs in lives and vessels. When the final entity was eliminated, the galaxy had been saved by species that other civilizations had considered useful barbarians. Dr. Kyrian's analysis of the aftermath revealed the true scope of human achievement. Colleagues, the humans have eliminated an existential threat to galactic civilization while preserving the fundamental structure of spacetime itself. The precision required exceeds anything in scientific literature. Admiral Fax studied casualty reports with professional respect. Admiral Vasquez, your forces achieved complete victory against impossible odds. Every military academy in the galaxy will study these tactics for centuries. But Admiral Vasquez was already looking toward reconstruction. Admiral, our concern now is repairing spacetime damage and assisting with galactic resettlement. The emergency is over, but recovery will require years. High Chancellor Zephyr realized that humanity's true gift to galactic civilization was not just protection from cosmic threats, it was demonstrating what species could accomplish when they chose cooperation over conquest. As human rescue vessels continued evacuation operations and repair fleets began restoring damaged sectors, the galaxy understood that they had witnessed the emergence of species capable of protecting entire civilizations from threats beyond imagination. Humanity had vanished without whisper to save everyone. And, in their quiet competence, they had transformed galactic understanding of what intelligent species could achieve when they chose to serve rather than rule. The Council would never again question human capabilities. But, more importantly, they would never again doubt human intentions. In saving the galaxy, humanity had proven that true strength lay not in the power to conquer, but in the wisdom to protect. And, in their silence, they had spoken louder than any words could ever convey.